with Ron. Obviously, Ron, back-to-back funny car world champion, clinched in Pomona, first funny car driver in 20 years to win back-to-back titles. It's the third for Ron, first as the team owner. So Ron, I'll bring you up here, and obviously the first question, has it sunk in just what this team was able to accomplish this year, and how much momentum has that given you guys for the offseason? How much are you looking forward to next year? And then we'll open up for questions from the media.
Well, obviously it's a little different. Last year at the same time, we were getting ready to announce, you know, myself being a team owner, but also that Napa Auto Parts was coming on board. So my stomach was in a little bit different area than it was today. Walking in here, I remember, you know, it was like hand grenades floating around in my stomach last year, just waiting to announce it, not knowing what was coming ahead, but also the fact that we just won the World Championship was something exciting. Knowing we'd have the #1 on the car, but just not knowing what was coming this following year. And now to be here, first time, you know, as a team owner, officially after a season, but not just that, having the season that we had. It's really cool to come back in a different, I guess, magnitude. Now I'm walking around and thanking sponsors. I'm saying hi to people that they really helped us throughout the year. So last year, you know, couldn't even imagine the start that we had at Pomona. You know, runner-up and then #1 qualifier, and then you fast forward to Pomona at the end of the year, and always seeing those big moments of people coming from behind on Sunday, the drama that builds up, and always wishing, you know, that I could somehow win it that way. You know, you're lucky to win one in the first place, but to do it in that fashion after seeing some of the big moments in Pro Stock and Top Fuel and even the sportsman classes, the very last run of the day. And the way it all unfolded was just something I never imagined being able to do. So it's incredible to have the #1 on the car again. It's mind-blowing for me to know and to hear, like he said, the first time in over 30 years for somebody to go back-to-back in the funny car division. It just takes me back to being a fan and watching John Force in those days with the domination he had. And if you look at, you know, the landscape of NHRA funny car especially, I know we had a new one announced this morning with Alex Laughlin, which is going to be fun to have him join the funny car ranks. But you look at the magnitude of talented crew chiefs and drivers that are in the division, it's even more impressive that we're able to do what we did and consistently run as good as we did. And I've got an immense respect for, you know, the Jimmy Prox and Dickie Venables and all these other cars that ran for a championship this year, and to be able to say that we did it and that we're the #1 in the car again next year is huge.
Questions for Ron? Feel free to just ask away. Anyone? Chris, go ahead.
Ron, as you mentioned, this is now your first year of being an owner is complete, and you kind of talked about that throughout the last year of how different things have been. Are you getting used to that now, or is that owner hat now starting to fit a little bit better? Are you getting more comfortable with that?
No. The lack of sleep and just the things that, and I feel weird I keep bringing it up, because I'm not the only one that's done it, but it seems like I talk about it more, or get asked about it, I should say more. You know, I talked about it when we clinched that day in Pomona, on just being surrounded by great people. You know, we had sponsors that had been around the cars that I'd driven in the past, that were on the car, stickers on the car here and there, and products that I knew we used on the cars that I was a driver, but I never imagined them coming to me at the end of the year last year and saying they want to be a part of what Guido and Madeline and myself were doing, and that is going out, me and personally on my own as a team owner, but they wanted to be a part of it, and it was cool, right? So then you obviously go into the year trying to do the business side of things, where I basically had to go, it's like going back to night school. It really was. I had to learn so much, and I still am, even this morning. So I'm not used to it, no. And I lean on, again, I feel like I talk about it too much, but I lean on Tony Stewart's been a help. John Force calls weekly checking on me. Don Perdome has been unbelievably helpful, him and his wife Lynn. Don Schumacher. You know, just, it's been a lot of fun to have that support, even from the people that I battle with week in and week out, Tim Wilkerson and Antron and all them. So it's been, just like I said in the interview, it's crazy that I didn't feel like my wife and I deserved the championship, in the sense that so many good people have been around us. It felt like I shouldn't have been up there accepting it myself, you know. So I'm getting used to it a little bit, and we're adding 2 things. You know, I got to buy the trucks and trailers, so I'm a proud owner of more equipment, and a lot of things like that have happened. So I'm really excited about going into our first full year, sort of, you know, not wet behind the ears, I guess. And it's been fun. We just hired a new kid on the team, and moved Tom Buckingham up to replace John Medlin as assistant crew chief, and I'm sure Guido will announce that here in a couple days, but I just did apparently. So that's exciting. We promoted within, and you can't replace a John Medlin, but the fact that he's really helped teach, like T-Buck, a lot of things. It's going to be fun to watch our crew show up at Gainesville and try to repeat. You know, big target on our back, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and as a team owner and a defending champion driver.
Can we talk about the fact that you had to change car bodies early in the year, and you were the most successful of the funny car drivers for Toyota?
And then you're going to get me in trouble. It was very tough. We had a lot of help. JR, you know, Todd's team, Oberhofer, and that whole DHL team, and Dell Worsham and Alexis. Dell was incredibly helpful. And I felt a little bad getting the first win, honestly. That Bristol win with the new GR Super Body was, you know, they've been Toyota for a long time, and they worked hard at that body. And Slugger, of course, Paul Dolishall worked very hard at bringing that funny car to where it was and making it competitive. So they didn't want, we'd had such good success, and honestly, I had these talks with Paul Dolishall several times. We were running so well that they didn't want to see a difference, right? They wanted us to, they didn't want to mess anything up that we were doing, but we knew that body was going to be better in the long run. So to get it in Charlotte, literally that was the first time we dropped the body for the burnout I'd ever driven in that car. And so I was like in a video game. They dropped the body that first qualifier number 1, the 4 wide, and I was looking around. It was so different inside that it was, even during the run, I was trying to focus on the run, but I'm looking around the car and just trying to take it all in. And the fact that we ran good right off the bat was great. But the first win was, it was bittersweet. It was cool that we did it, and Paul Dolishall was there, and it was a big deal for everybody involved, Slugger. But it, you know, a little bit of me was like, I felt a little bad that they weren't able to get the first win. So, but I think we helped them as much as they helped us. I think in the long run, Guido and Medlin are very sharp with aero and the years at John Force's and the years at Schumacher's. That I think that they also helped. And I would think that Dell and Jono would say the same thing, that we helped as much as they did in the long run. I hopefully we helped them going into next year be better.
How different was it to drive?
Very different. I've never seen that well out of a car from the inside. So I knew JR had worked on, and Alexis worked with Slugger, first and foremost, being able to see better. Because these cars are, I've gotten to drive a lot of cars, sprint cars, midgets, road race cars, and there's nothing like a nitro funny car. Nothing on the planet. It is the most evil handling, craziest thing you can drive. So not being able to see on top of that makes it worse. But this body was, they did a lot of work in it. That's the first thing I noticed, is how I could really see everything, see more of the track. And then we tested the safety part of it when we blew it up the first round at Bristol before we won. First of all, we ruined our first Toyota body. It was a big explosion. We came back to win the race with our backup. But the explosion showed all the work they did in the wind tunnel, because it should have blown the body off like we've seen in the past. I've done it many times in the past, but they worked hard at it. When that explosion should have blew most of the body off, and it didn't. In fact, we ended up running that same body the next race with a little bit of a minimal repair. So that was another cool thing that I know Slugger, that was a feather in his cap as well.
Ron, is it driving you nuts knowing that you won't be in the car till March instead of the end of January? How weird an off-season is that?
It's going to be different. Listen, it couldn't have come at a better time for me, because I'm trying to buy equipment. I'm working with Don Schumacher and trying to purchase as much equipment as I can. I've never seen so many zeros in a bank account go back and forth in my life, nor did I ever think I'd be part of watching that kind of money. And so it really, it makes you realize that, you know, first and foremost, not having Pomona to go to right at the beginning of February and have to test and have to get your fire suits and all the stuff that I never worried about. All I worried about before was ship the fire suit to my house, and then I'll bring that and my helmet to the photo shoot and the commercials, and that's all I had to worry about as a driver. So now I'm really thinking about more, and I think having it in Gainesville, it's a closer drive. Testing will be that week leading into Gainesville, which NHRA is going to test at that track, which for me as a team owner, I'm counting, you know, the zeros, the dollar signs, and so the fuel, all those things I never thought about before. To answer your question, I think it's going to help me as a new team owner, especially the money that I'm going to be spending, pretty much all of it going into February to try to buy new stuff, which I've never done. This will be my first time doing that. So from that standpoint, I love it. I think it's going to be a great thing, and I love the West Coast swing feel of the Phoenix, Vegas, Pomona, or whatever order it's in, but that's going to be something unique, as well as the weather. Winter Nationals, you know, it gets rain a lot, so I think it's going to be cool to have it in early April.
Ron, I want to ask you, talk about the beginning of the season, also going back to Chicago, you're the defending call-out winner, a lot of cool things next year. What else are you looking forward to next season-wise?
The announcement of the 23rd race you guys are going to have, hopefully. No, I am super pumped about Chicago. Bittersweet going to Phoenix, knowing it's going to be possibly the last race there. But Chicagoland, that's been such a historic place. And I remember in a funny car, I made the first run there in the Copenhagen car when they just opened that place. And I can't wait to get back there. And it's a close race for me. I talked about it over at NHRA this morning. More than anything, I love it because it's close to Indianapolis. And as you know, all the crew members, all the crew chiefs live here. I love the Indianapolis race, the St. Louis race, because they get to bring their kids and their families, and they come camp out. And it's a family affair, and it's hard for these guys on the road, these crew members, because that's what I did before I drove. I was on the road, and I was a crew member, so I understand it. So I love the fact that we're having another race that's close enough for their family to come hang out. It's a great facility, it's a great city, and we should be there, and I'm very glad we're going back.
Thanks, Grace.
You mentioned you promoted from within to replace Sean Medlin. Are there any other new changes or things that you're introducing to the team for this next season?
Man, no. We're trying to secure an oil deal that we're working on, so hopefully we can announce that sometime in the off season. But really, we hired a new kid that happens to be a friend of Mike Neff, Zippy's son, which is great. He's a kid that Guido said he's not very experienced, but he's eager to learn. So we're going to move him into the position of working on the bodies and the tires, and then of course T-Buck moving up, and all our guys are staying. And tonight we have my first Christmas party as a team owner, a Christmas dinner here in town. So I think I've said it many years in the past as a driver. There's nothing like going to the first race and the off season with the same team members. And I've been very lucky through my career, even at Snakes and Don's. I've pretty much had the same crew members for chunks of time, years at a time, and not a lot of drivers could say that. You know, you get a lot of turnover, and it's not a good thing rolling into the Winter Nationals when you've got new team members or a new crew chief. So that part excites me, that we're just going to sort of hit the ground running. And Guido said we're basically going to pull the Maguires with the same setup we just ended the year at Pomona, which is a pretty good hot rod. So I'm excited about that, and not a lot of changes to begin with. So yeah, to answer your question, not a whole lot, which is good.
Thanks. One more.
Is there anything that Perdome shared with you, being that you guys were close, plus being a driver to an owner?
Oh, yeah.
that you can share, because you shared that quote on, I think it was the WFO podcast, about you can't win a race with a mule.
Ride the mule. That's one of his little quirky sayings once in a while that you just,
I mean, is there anything else that stands out?
yeah, his wife Lynn was really what made him successful. He'll tell you that now.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't tell you 20 years ago. She's extremely sharp and pretty much took care of all the business side of things. So the fact that she was an open book with my wife and I, and Paul Meck, our team manager, Snake weekly, if not multi-calls, throughout all the weeks in the off season. One particular moment, and I don't even know if I was even supposed to say it out loud, but last Thanksgiving, not this one, the year before, I was in a group text with Snake, Rick Hendrick, and Jeff Gordon, and Snake was trying to get them to give some assistance to me going in, to help me buy rigs or whatever I was gonna do. That's a weird thing as a fan, right? And obviously Rick Hendrick is my teammate Chase Elliott with Napa, the team owner, and Paul Mecca and I had a phone call with Rick Hendrick, and he was whatever you need, conversation. Whatever you need advice. So to stand up here and say that I was in a conversation with Don Perdome and Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon on, and basically whatever advice I needed, whatever help I needed was pretty cool on a Thanksgiving day, which was nuts. So that's a kind of weirdness that went on in my off season that the fan in me was like, wow, this is crazy.
I worked for a long time out in Phoenix, so